Thank you, Papa. A wise man once said that Jamaica has no army that can defend us externally. But we know that the impact of the work of our foreign service workers make them our external army. So today, I pay special tribute in the form of gratitude to our dedicated and professional foreign service workers deployed in embassies, consulates, and permanent missions across the world, and their families who also serve our country, and sometimes at great personal sacrifice. To our foreign service workers, we salute you. Mr. Speaker, I want to look at our foreign policy founded on that good neighbor principle, independent and principled, that we are on track with. No satellites. The People's National Party, Mr. Speaker, has always been the party that upholds the good neighbor principles, seeking to create meaningful engagements at the regional and international levels, without abandoning our responsibilities for the local issues that confront us. As a party in government, our struggle has always been to improve conditions for the people of Jamaica. And it has always been interdependent and inextricably linked to the wider struggle for improved conditions for the poor and less fortunate across the world. Indeed, Opposition Leader Mr. Mark Golding recently in his budget presentation stated that all our current proposals that address the growth and development of this nation are grounded in our core beliefs of social justice, equality, good governance, and accountability at all levels. And again, I quote, as he said, that our international policy, therefore, and our relationship with the global family of nations are grounded on this principle of being good neighbors to all, while maintaining our sovereignty and our independence. Non-aligned. Mr. Speaker, accountability to the people of Jamaica and staying true to long-standing principles that govern regional and international engagement form the cornerstone of good governance. This means that there must be clear policy positions known to all Jamaicans on matters that affect our nation, the region, and the global landscape. Clear policy positions on international issues are essential for guiding our actions as a nation, demonstrating our responsibility to the global community. This means unambiguous and consistent positions and actions. This includes addressing situations such as what's happening in Haiti, which raise questions about our national border security while adhering to international protocols, or the Guyana-Venezuela dispute, which requires balancing relations while working towards regional stability, or the conflicts in the Middle East, which including the war in Gaza and their overall implications for global peace, solidarity, security, and stability. In this framework of accountability, we urge all parliamentarians to pay closer attention to the ever-changing nature of global matters that will ultimately affect and have a significant impact on the lives of their constituents. We must play a more active role and ensure that Parliament works as it should, with important parliamentary committees like the Internal and External Affairs Committee, for example, examining, and I'm quoting from the standing orders in terms of what they're supposed to do, examining all matters relating to the foreign policy of the government, analyzing the implications and likely effect on Jamaica, examining treaties and other international agreements, and advising the Parliament of their likely impact of Jamaica. In addition, Mr. Speaker, we also need a revitalization of the parliamentary friendship groups, which would facilitate greater discussions of bipartisanship and bring some of these issues closer to the people of Jamaica. The time is now to have all committees of Parliament fulfill their mandate and include the Jamaican people in the discussions around foreign policy. Mr. Speaker, I pause for a minute to talk about the Jamaica-Cuba Parliamentary Friendship Group, which has not been active for a while, but I believe which is one around which, fortunately, there is a convergence of views on many related issues. So in fact, let me use the opportunity today to place on record our support of the statement from the Caribbean Communities Council for Foreign and Community Relations, welcoming the decision of the United States government to remove Cuba from its list of states that are not cooperating fully in the fight against terrorism. As this Parliament has done annually for several years now, I also want to join in rejecting the unilateral imposition of the blockade against Cuba for the past 60 years. We also call upon the U.S. government to remove Cuba now from the list of countries deemed to be state sponsors of terrorism. They're still on that, yes. Mr. Speaker, our relations with Cuba confirms their unwavering position of international solidarity and not one associated with terrorism. Mr. Speaker, I'm not sure if you know that today, May 29th, is in fact an important day in history. And so I'm honored to be speaking today as the United Nations commemorates the International Day of UN Peacekeepers. This is the date in 1948 when the first UN peacekeeping mission began operations in Palestine with a group of unarmed men. So today, we pay tribute to the brave men and women who have served and continue to serve the UN peacekeeping operations. We honor their memory, and in particular, those who have made the ultimate sacrifice in pursuit of peace. It is interesting, though, that 76 years later, we are still reckoning with the crisis in Palestine. The risks faced by peacekeepers and the massive loss of lives in the ongoing war in Gaza. Today, I recall the words of a former UN Undersecretary General who said, and I quote, "Crises develop and people die, not because of big conflicts, but because nobody cares." And so today, I am reminded as well of the importance of our collective actions and care for those affected by this conflict. And this is why, as Jamaicans, we must care. Allow me, therefore, Mr. Speaker, because most of us, many of us, were absolutely stunned and collectively embarrassed when Jamaica ducked the vote before the UN Assembly for a humanitarian ceasefire in Gaza on the 28th of October, 2023.
Repeat it. What is the point of order? What is the point of order?
Yes, point of order.
Mr. Speaker.
Go ahead.
Mr. Speaker, with the greatest of respect, Mr. Speaker, the point of order, Mr. Speaker, I rise in the interest of all Jamaicans. A Jamaica that wins is a Jamaica that wins for everybody, whether you are government or you are opposition. Mr. Speaker, the presenter is misleading. The presenter is misleading. It's one Jamaica, you know. Mr. Speaker, the presenter is misleading the House.
Members, one of the members is on the floor on a point of order. Will we allow him to say his piece? Continue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The presenter is misleading the House. The presenter has no basis whatsoever, no accurate basis, no factual basis to say that Jamaica ducked a vote. Mr. Speaker, what happened on the day in question was clearly explained to the nation, Mr. Speaker. In fact, no, Mr. Speaker, I have not finished making my point, Mr. Speaker.
Based on what has just been said.
I have not finished making my point, Mr. Speaker.
I believe this is an abuse of the privilege
It is not.
of the Parliament. I really do.
Mr. Speaker, we must
really
not
do.
try.
None of you have the floor. I am going to speak, and if you can't, I will say this again. If I turn your mic off, it means that I'm asking you to stop talking so that I can say my piece. If you all will keep quiet, then I will get to. Members, if I have to use a standing order to name you, I will name you. I'm asking you all to behave in a manner that is civil. Member Terrelong, please get to your point of order so that Member Burke can continue her presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Not only is the Speaker misleading the House as to what factually happened at the United Nations, the member must also note that for the last 76 years, Mr. Speaker, that this administration is the government that recognized.
Stop. Member, there's another point of order. If you allow your colleague to make his point of order, then you'll hear something.
Mr. Speaker, this is an abuse of the privilege that has been granted to the member. We are in the sectoral debate. It is unfair for the member to have to wallow through this deliberate attempt at preventing her from making her presentation. I urge you, Mr. Speaker, to rule the point of order out of order and to allow the member to continue her presentation.
Member Burke.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, still today, in boardrooms and hallways of the world, the questions are being asked. How complicated could it have been for Jamaica to vote for a humanitarian truce? How many civilians did the government of Jamaica need to see before taking a decision?
No, not going to do it today. Point of order, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, again, the member is misleading the House on a matter of global importance. Mr. Speaker, the government of Jamaica... Yes.
Please, if you're moving a point of order, you have to make sure that your point of order is directed at the point that you're making.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
What I'm getting from you is a presentation which you don't want at this time. Please.
Mr. Speaker, the member has indicated...
Make your point of order.
The point of order, Mr. Speaker, is that in referencing the matter, the speaker has indicated that in boardrooms across the world, people are asking and people are wondering. To the contrary, Mr. Speaker, that is fallacious. It is misleading. Mr. Speaker, today... Mr. Speaker, to the contrary, boardrooms across the world, Mr. Speaker.
Stop. You don't have the mic. No, you don't. Please, you are given time to make a point of order, but you're making a presentation. No. Member Burke.
Mr. Speaker, at the end of the day, 12 CARICOM countries, 12 CARICOM countries voted in favor of the resolution, demonstrating their principled positions on a principled matter that resulted in the resolution being adopted by a vote of 120 to 14. Mr. Speaker, it is true that in more recent times, there has been a move by the government of Jamaica to do some damage control by voting with CARICOM, with the rest of CARICOM, to recognize the state of Palestine. I acknowledge that, and I welcome that. But make no mistake, Mr. Speaker, as we travel across the country and the diaspora, and I'm speaking from personal experience. I'm speaking from individuals who have called and who have questioned and who have sent me the questions. Many Jamaicans are still sharing their disappointment and their embarrassment and are asking questions whether or not, for example, Jamaica supported South Africa in bringing the Israeli government before the ICJ for an emergency determination of genocide being committed against the Palestinian people and for the declaration of emergency measures in support of Palestine. They're asking if Jamaica supported the recent decisions of the ICC to arrest, for the arrest warrants for 3 leaders of Hamas, as well as Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and the Defense Minister Yoav Gallant. I'll tell you in a minute. For the record, Mr. Speaker, the PNP's position is pellucidly clear. We have long opposed and condemned the apartheid system, the displacement, cruel and inhuman. We have condemned and opposed the apartheid system, the displacement, cruel and inhumane treatment meted out to the Palestinian people over decades in their homeland. Yes. We regret and condemn all violence without exception taking place in the region and the wanton killing of civilians, regardless of race, religion, or nationality. We support and have always supported the two-state solution with an independent Palestine, free from Israeli control and authority. We join the call for Israel to refrain from all acts that threaten humanitarian aid getting to the civilian population in Palestine. With some 35,000 Palestinians over...
Member Fitz. I will say this. I recognize only the person who has the mic to speak. Everyone else is making noise. And if I have to speak to you again, Member Fitz. You're shouting. Member Burke.
With some 35,000 Palestinians killed, over 70% of whom are women and children, we condemn the collective punishment and the genocidal campaign being waged against the Palestinian people. And therefore, the Republic of South Africa had our full support in the case against Israel before the ICJ. Mr. Speaker, let me turn now to the Jamaican diaspora. It is no secret that we rely very heavily on Jamaicans in the diaspora for remittances, which support our balance of payments and provide this vital social safety net for family and friends in the absence of a more adequate support from the state. But the Jamaican diaspora represents much more than that, and they'll tell you that they do not want to be treated as an ATM machine. They are significant contributors to our national development and quality of life for many in Jamaica. Therefore, to their families, to their friends, charitable acts that they do for communities in which they grew and villages that they have. Therefore, their inclusion must be seamless and not fraught with bureaucratic red tape and political bungling. Their opinions must be voiced freely without fear of marginalization or exclusion. All views must contend in the best interest of our beloved nation. Mr. Speaker, the time is now to modernize and simplify the customs process, remove the red tape on verifiable charitable contributions, and engage in consistent public education and awareness of these processes. Very frustrating. On this side, we unequivocally support the appointment of senators from the diaspora. Let us recall, Mr. Speaker, that the Joint Select Committee in Parliament recommended back in 2010 this very idea. So it's not a new one, 14 years ago. And in fact, successive administrations on both sides have supported the call. Today, we renew that call and state emphatically that that is our position. This position, I believe, is even more crucial now as we are engaged in a national dialogue about constitutional reform. And we certainly believe that this has to be one of the issues on the agenda for discussion. We believe, Mr. Speaker, that the engagement of the Jamaican public in an exercise as important as a reform of our constitution is one that is impatient of debate. The time is now for a new direction in how we deal with the people's business. I want now, Mr. Speaker, to speak a little bit about our regional and international obligations and the progressive, principled, sustainable approach that we think we should have. I couldn't do a presentation without touching on the essence of what truly inspires our motto, out of many, one people. Inclusivity, inclusion. As a country with such diversity as we have, we must continue to create a Jamaica for all Jamaicans, at home and abroad. Further, we must heed the call, Mr. Speaker, of the International Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination to broaden the definition of racial discrimination in our Constitution and other legislations to include direct and indirect racial discrimination as we seek to tackle long-standing issues of classism and colorism in Jamaica. The time is now, Mr. Speaker, to have this discussion without weaponizing, as we so often do, the issue of race. When I hear some of the comments coming from ministers of government, it is clear to me that there has been no discussion at Cabinet around the issue of broadening the definition of racial discrimination and the violation that is being created. I stand resolutely, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I stand resolutely in defense of the inalienable right of every Jamaican, of Mr. Orlando Terrellong, as well as Mr. Mark Goldie.
We are going to ask members of the gallery. You're here to observe, not to talk. Please, we are getting sounds from the gallery. If you continue, please desist.
I'm pleased to have listened to that comment. Mr. Speaker, I stand resolutely in defense of the inalienable right of every Jamaican, whether it is the member from East Central St. Catherine or the member from South St. Andrew, and I say, or West Rural St. Andrew, and I say to every single one of them that they can depend on me to reject any attempt, and here I quote, at nullifying or impairing the recognition, enjoyment, or exercise on an equal footing of human rights and fundamental freedoms of political, economic, social, cultural, or any other field in public life.
Loyal viewers and subscribers, honorable people, give thanks for your support to the AVI-NUE. Know that I appreciate you sincerely. New viewers, welcome on board. Know that your presence is appreciated. Please subscribe to the channel and help us reach 1,000 subscribers. Thank you. United we